Through the Third Eye. Book 1 of the Third Eye Trilogy. Chapter 6. The Library. Back in the regression room, Clay and Shali began the next phase of the regression on 𝐂𝐇𝐈𝐒. Shali worked 𝐂𝐇𝐈𝐒 through the preliminary scripts and quickly took him to a deep state of hypnosis.
𝐂𝐇𝐈𝐒, you will return to the long hallway of doors. At the end you see a glowing light. Walk toward that glowing light.
Clay pressed the button to the micro pulse pads on the bottom of 𝐂𝐇𝐈𝐒's feet. Shali continued.
Move down the hallway. You see that the light is coming from a doorway at the end of the hall. That doorway leads into a very large and beautiful room. Are you at that doorway now?
Yes.
Walk through that doorway now and look around at the many bookshelves, rows and rows of bookshelves. In the center of the room, you see a very long reading table with lamps. This is a library, a very large and very special library, the library of the Akashic records. Feel the magnificence. Each book is a complete record of every single soul in the universe. The complete history of your soul is in one of those books. Do you see all the books?
𝐂𝐇𝐈𝐒 responded in a slow, low tone of voice that exuded awe.
Yes, I see it all. This is a beautiful place. So much knowledge, so much experience, so many souls. The shelves go forever in every direction.
Do you see anyone else in the library?
There are several others here. They are dressed in long robes. They are glowing in clouds of deep color, deep blue or red, almost purple, beautiful dark colors. However, their robes are white, I think, although they are shrouded in mists of dark color. I do not understand. They move slowly through the shelves and look at the books. They are so intelligent, so wise.
Are any of them coming to you, looking at you or waiting for you?
Allahu Akbar. God is great. Yes, I know that one. That one is coming to me. She is glad to see me, and I am glad to see her. I know her. I have seen her and been with her many times before. I don't know how I know her or why, I just know her.
She is your guide, your teacher and mentor. She helps you with all of your lives. When the body that you live in dies, she comes to help you back to the spirit world. This is so you are not lost or confused when you leave that body. Do you feel all right? Are you comfortable?
Yes. I am happy to see her. It is good to be here.
Tell her you would like to review all the lives you lived before. Ask her if she can show you your book and review your past lives. Ask her now.
Clay pressed a deep, long micro-pulse shock to 𝐂𝐇𝐈𝐒's shoulders. His neck and shoulders flinched slightly.
Have you asked her?
Yes. She is taking me to the shelves. I am with her. She is taking out a book and placing it on the table. She opened the book, the page comes to life. I see everything in this life. I see everything. It all comes alive on these pages. The entire life is like a storybook, like a 3D movie.
Go to the first life. What do you see in this life?
It is a very long time ago. I'm not human. I'm some type of a creature, some kind of an animal. I don't know what I am. I don't like this life. It is boring, not challenging, not exciting.
Tell your guide you want to move forward in time to maybe 3,000 to 4,000 years ago. Tell her you only want to see human lives that are relevant to today's world in which you live. Tell her this now. Does she accept this?
Yes, she understands. She always understands.
Ask her if she will talk directly with me.
Shali looked at Clay and nodded while putting a forefinger to her forehead. Clay pressed the button to give a long shock to the third eye micro-pulse pad. 𝐂𝐇𝐈𝐒's head pressed back into the pillow.
No, she does not want to talk with you.
Shali looked at Clay and shook her head. He whispered,
Let's try again later.
The guide was probably the only way to get the real information they wanted, and he knew they would have a better chance at conversing with her after they had spent time reviewing the Akashic records. Shali then said to 𝐂𝐇𝐈𝐒,
That's fine. Continue reviewing the book. Are you at a life between 3,000 to 4,000 years ago?
𝐂𝐇𝐈𝐒's soul reviewed several insignificant lives in that time frame. One was a young girl somewhere in Africa who died of an infection in her leg. Another life was a teenage boy who was bitten by a cobra in India and died a rapid, painful death. Another life was a woman in Southeast Asia who lived until the ripe old age of 54. Finally, they got to a life of more interest. 𝐂𝐇𝐈𝐒 described the details after he turned the page of his Akashic records.
Yes, such an interesting life. My father was an important man. I was also important. There are many stories about many people in my family. It is in the time of 1700 BC, and I lived in an ancient land very dry. My father and mother are Ibrahim and Sarai. My name is 𝐂𝐁𝐎𝐒. I have 2 sons.
Describe everything you believe is important and relevant in this life.
Once my brother Yismail and I were very old, and my father was over 100 years old. My father got so angry with us that he threatened to kill both of us. We were all such old men in these bodies, and yet we acted like children. Our father yelled at us that he would kill us if we did not do as he wished.
Laughing out loud, 𝐂𝐇𝐈𝐒 continued.
Oh, later, when we came back from the mountain, the stories became fantastic legends. My brother and I played along, so we would not hurt my father's feelings. People were saying that God told my father to sacrifice his son.
𝐂𝐇𝐈𝐒 belly laughed even louder.
But the next week, we all forgave each other and made a feast in the village. People said that God changed his mind and told him to kill a goat for the feast instead of sacrificing me or my brother. The stories were amusing to the family.
Shali allowed 𝐂𝐇𝐈𝐒 to spew out the history of significant events in this life, while she conferred with 𝐂𝐁𝐻 on the side.
Any idea who this person may have been?
𝐂𝐁𝐻 clicked away on the internet and said without looking up,
I think I know who we have here. Let's see. Yes, our buddy 𝐂𝐇𝐈𝐒 here seems to be Isaac. Yitzhak is Hebrew for Isaac. I am guessing that his father Ibrahim is probably Abraham. Yes, the Abraham, the root of Christianity, Judaism, and Islam. Isaac had 2 sons, Jacob and Esau, and his brother was named Ishmael. Yeah, this has to be Abraham's son. It makes sense to me based on that story about the mountain.
What do you mean?
Supposedly, Abraham got a command from God to sacrifice his son.
And
Still reading from the internet, 𝐂𝐻 said,
The story goes that God told Abraham to sacrifice his son Isaac, but later God changed his mind and told them to sacrifice an animal instead. Remember Solomon and Hillel and the human sacrifices? It wasn't uncommon at that time to just sacrifice a human, even your own child.
𝐂𝐻 paused.
If this was really Isaac, then it sounds like Abraham was just a crusty old fart. Being that old, and if he was really that nasty, he might have had dementia or Alzheimer's. Although, an angry father is no different than when my dad caught me stealing whiskey from the liquor cabinet as a teenager. He told me he'd kill me if he caught me again.
He chuckled.
Hey, maybe exaggerated stories of my dad and me could start a new religion.
𝐂𝐻 sat back in his chair for a moment, glowing in the success for finding another historical hit in this soul.
we can try to validate events tomorrow after we review the recordings. Isaac or Yitzhak lived way before the secrets were even assembled.
Agreed. But if this is really Isaac, then we're batting 1,000 with this guy. You know, all of these tens of thousands of regressions and 99.9% of the lives are just plain boring people. And now we run across a whole slew of historically famous people in this one young Palestinian. We've got to dig for other living members of his soul pod. We are hot. I feel like we are singing in Vegas with Frank Sinatra's Rat Pack.
Could be, but don't get your hopes up.
𝐂𝐇𝐈𝐒 chattered on about this life of Isaac for 5 more minutes before Shali moved him forward in his Akashic record. 𝐂𝐇𝐈𝐒 then revealed 2 very ordinary lives. One life was a woman in the Olmec civilization of ancient Mexico in 1500 BC. She died of natural causes as an old woman, leaving 37 grandchildren to carry on. The next uneventful life was spent as a fisherman along the Turkish coast. As expected from the morning's timeline of lives, they came to 𝐂𝐇𝐈𝐒's life as King Solomon. At the end of the description of King Solomon's life, Shali said to Clay,
The review of the Akashic record validates what we got in the regression earlier this morning, but with a lot less emotion and more objectivity.
That's why I like to get to the Akashics as quickly as possible.
Shali continued the regression and found 3 more ordinary, simple lives between 900 and 600 BC, one each in Egypt, the Indonesian islands, and Italy. 10 minutes into 𝐂𝐇𝐈𝐒's description of the next life, Shali was glowing. She turned to Clay and said in smug tone,
We've got ourselves the one and only Pythagoras, here revered philosopher, mathematician, mystic and scientist. How'd ya like them cookies?
Looking up from his laptop, Clay said.
You're kidding.
He started clicking away at the keyboard.
Let's see, I've got 480 to 590 BC. Damn, he lived to be 90 years old.
Shali smirked.
Not quite. The official Akashic records here say he died in 478 BC, so that would make him 92. You internet history books are wrong.
Clay looked at Shali through the top of his eyes, and then back to his screen.
Here, I see that he's known as the father of mathematics.
Man, if only we could bring this public. Just think of the ramifications. But poor Iqbal here would be eaten alive by the press.
That is, of course, if anybody believed it. We'd probably be tarred and feathered as heretics, or most likely branded as lunatics. We'd be eaten long before they got to 𝐂𝐇𝐈𝐒.
They continued the review of the Akashic records for a grueling 30 minutes and 3 more lives. Shali pulled Clay aside for a quick translation as 𝐂𝐇𝐈𝐒 continued describing his lives for the recorder. Stretching her head back and then rubbing her neck, Shali looked down at her notes and said,
Here's what we've got. A couple of uneventful lives in the 300s and 400s BC. One was a concubine to a low-level warlord in China. The other was a short-lived Aboriginal boy on a southern Philippine island.
She listened as 𝐂𝐇𝐈𝐒 continued to sequentially describe his past lives in his Akashic book.
But I think we may have found who you were looking for. We've got a life in the 200s BC named Apollonius, although he said he was from Rhodes, not Tiana. Didn't you say your Apollonius was from Tiana?
Clay scowled and blew out a sharp puff of air. He looked down at the laptop and furiously clicked away for 30 seconds.
Damn it. We got the wrong Apollonius. 𝐂𝐇𝐈𝐒 was Apollonius of Rhodes in the 200s BC, not Apollonius of Tyana of the 100s AD. We got the wrong one. They're 300 years apart.
Shali sat back in her chair, raised her eyebrows and stared at Clay as if looking for guidance. 𝐂𝐇𝐈𝐒 babbled along about the life of Apollonius of Rhodes to the recorder in the background. Clay continued reading his laptop and then said under his breath,
Why this Apollonius? Why were we led to 𝐂𝐇𝐈𝐒?
A few moments passed as he scanned his screen. Then he exclaimed,
Of course. Of course, I've been looking at this in the wrong way.
He glanced up to Shali and said in reserved excitement,
Our Apollonius of Rhodes here was considered one of the keepers of Alexandria's great library. Now I understand why I was led to 𝐂𝐇𝐈𝐒. I have been searching for philosophers, scientists, or authors. I should have been focusing on the people who collected and stored the writings of others. There were once great secrets from all over the world stored in the Alexandrian library about 2,000 years ago. However, the entire library was slowly and methodically plundered and destroyed by different groups over several centuries.
Shali rhetorically asked,
What better soul to know of secret writings than the head of the greatest library, huh?
Clay shot back.
So maybe the key to finding the secrets is in finding the librarians of Alexandria. We need to focus on the later librarians who were probably involved in stashing the secrets before the library was destroyed. Let's keep going. Maybe 𝐂𝐇𝐈 has more relevant lives later.
Shali continued reviewing the Akashic records with 𝐂𝐇𝐈 for another 30 minutes before stopping to translate for Clay.
Well, there wasn't much more eventful for Apollonius. Then came the next two lives of Hillel and Philostratus, as we saw from this morning's session. Nothing new turned up there. But the next life was a guy named Iamblichus from Syria in the 300s AD. I think I've heard the name.
She nodded towards his laptop.
What can you tell me about Iamblichus?
Clay perked up with excitement and jumped back into his laptop.
I know about Iamblichus. He was a famous Neoplatonist philosopher who studied under a guy named Porphyry in Rome. Porphyry, in turn, studied under Plato. They all had a general philosophy of a single connected universe and a possible single world soul. But they were all at odds with both the Christians and the Jews at that time.
This must have made for some interesting debates, huh?
Oh, I'm sure it did.
Here in the Akashic records, 𝐂𝐇𝐈's soul described many conflicts they had with religious groups.
Clay looked up from the laptop again.
Here, it says that Iamblichus was known for his compendium on Pythagorean philosophy.
He chuckled.
Now, who would know more about Pythagorean philosophy than the reincarnated soul of Pythagoras? This soul just didn't want to give up on his opposition to organized religions. Let's keep pushing on. I can tell from the monitors that 𝐂𝐇𝐈 is getting tired.
Shali moved 𝐂𝐇𝐈's soul to the next life. In just a few minutes, she turned to Clay and said,
It's getting better. His next life was Nestorius around 400 AD. I've heard the name but don't know any details. What have you got there?
Clicking away, Clay said,
Well, let's see. This Nestorius was the Archbishop of Constantinople in Turkey. He made proclamations that started huge Christian debates over the separate existence of God, Jesus Christ, human bodies, and divine souls. Phew.
Shali thought for a few seconds before responding.
That makes sense. His earlier incarnation as Iamblichus saw a merging of individual souls in the divine soul into one. Hence, he must have portrayed God, Christ and all mankind as really just one entity. Our buddy 𝐂𝐇𝐈's soul has a theme here. But I'm not sure how it plays into these secrets that we're after.
Agreed. This is interesting stuff, but if we don't get moving, we're not going to find these writings. 𝐂𝐇𝐈 only gave us one day.
Shali pushed 𝐂𝐇𝐈's soul through 4 more lives before pausing to translate for Clay.
The next two lives in the 500s and 600s AD seem like normal people in Europe and Africa with pretty obscure lives. But the next life in the 700s AD was a guy named Jabir in Persia. He was into philosophy, science, things like that. Seems like he was renowned. Do you know anything about a Jabir, or can you try to look him up?
I think I know who he is. Give me a second.
Clay smiled a dirty grin.
Here he is. I found him online.
Clay read for a few seconds, then paraphrased what he saw.
Jabir ibn Hayyan was a Persian Arab in the 700s AD. Wow, a prodigy genius. In addition to being known as the father of chemistry, he was a renowned alchemist, astronomer, astrologer, engineer, geologist, philosopher, physicist, pharmacist, and physician. A regular whiz-bang guy. Does this sound like the guy you got?
Shali smiled back and said,
Sure does. He talked about most of those disciplines. At least the history books were spot on. So, 𝐂𝐇𝐈's soul was the father of mathematics as Pythagoras, and now we see he was known as the father of chemistry in Jabir. I wonder if he's got any more fatherhoods?
𝐂𝐇𝐈 continued to describe his past life experiences to the recorder, while Shali and Clay continued conversing in the background. Still fixated on the laptop screen, Clay said,
Here it says that 𝐂𝐇𝐈𝐒 was a prolific writer. This guy had some 3,000 known writings, many so complex, deep and twisted that the English word gibberish is believed to derive from reference to 𝐂𝐵IR's writings. He had one book called the Book of Stones that supposedly described how to artificially create life, including humans. The text was written in some type of encoded language that could barely be understood, even after years of studying 𝐂𝐵IR's gibberish.
Alright, Mr. Encyclopedia, I can tell from the tone of your voice that you have something on your mind. What are you thinking?
I remember reading several of the books written by psychologists on past life regression. Even though I've never run across it in my PLR work, the books said some souls had supposedly practiced the creation of life on obscure planets somewhere else in the universe. I don't know whether to believe it or not. Maybe 𝐂𝐵IR's work was an incarnated human's documentation of this phenomenon. I wish we had more time to dig into this 𝐂𝐵IR's life. Damn you, 𝐂𝐇𝐈𝐒, we could use a couple more days.
Anything else before I push on?
Almost ignoring her comment, he replied.
I wonder if 𝐂𝐵IR had some sort of connection to another dimension or world where he remembered these experiments in the creation of life. If so, it's probably no wonder his writings were all gibberish. This makes me wonder if any of 𝐂𝐵IR's writings are part of the collection of secret hidden writings that we're looking for. I wonder if these are the secrets of the universe we are looking for.
After a few seconds of hesitation, while listening to 𝐂𝐇𝐈𝐒 continue to rabble on, Shali said,
I got one more life after 𝐂𝐵IR, another Persian named Razes. What details can you find?
Clay turned his attention back to the laptop.
Here it is. Muhammad ibn Zachariah Razi, but they called him Razes or Rasis. He was another famous Persian jack of all trades around the year 900 AD.
As 𝐂𝐇𝐈𝐒 continued rambling, Clay suddenly and excitedly burst out.
Holy moly, this guy was another hotshot. Although raised and died in Iran, he spent much of his life in medical and academic circles in Baghdad. That's where he kept his main laboratory. Just like 𝐂𝐵IR, Razes was a renowned alchemist, chemist, physician, philosopher, scholar, and musician. As a physician, he was famous for dealing with smallpox. He was attributed with discovering rubbing alcohol, and he authored thousands of books and articles on a wide-ranging set of disciplines. Guess what? He was big in childhood diseases and child medicine. Razes is known as the father of pediatrics.
Shali chuckled.
Is 𝐂𝐇𝐈𝐒's soul some kind of a promiscuous intellectual soul? He has to be the father of all disciplines?
Clay read on.
It says here he was a believer in the transmutation of metals. He believed you could transform one metal into another. You know, like turn copper into gold. He even wrote 2 books about transmutation. One was called Al-Azrar or The Secrets.
Clay stopped and looked up at Shali.
And another was called Sir Al-Azrar or The Secret of Secrets. Do you suppose?
Before he could even ask, Shali cut him off.
Could be. Maybe this guy wrote down a lot of the secrets you have heard people mentioning in your regressions.
Yeah. According to the history books, contrary to 𝐂𝐵IR, Razes was very concise in his writing. Maybe he learned something from his previous life as the Jabbermouth. Maybe that was his soul's correction in this life, to learn how to write intelligently.
Clay chuckled at his own joke.
When 𝐂𝐇𝐈𝐒's soul talked about Razes' view toward religions, he wasn't very gracious. Can you see anything about this?
It looks like our regression has proved the historians right. This says Razes pretty much had a disdain for organized religions. He had conflicts with religious leaders, in particular those preaching Islam, even while living in Baghdad.
I wish we had more time with this guy, 𝐂𝐇𝐈𝐒, but we don't. We'll listen to the tapes later and try to dig out more details.
End of Chapter 6.